I couldn't believe it. The car I bought her for our anniversary, the car I thought would bring us closer, was gone. Rachel, my wife of 5 years, had casually told me over dinner that she'd let her mother borrow it, a Porsche Cayenne, a luxury I'd worked so hard to afford, an emblem of everything I thought we were. The pride of our small family, and yet, in a moment of arrogance, she handed it over like a trinket she no longer cared for. I sat at the dinner table, my fork halfway to my mouth, the taste of the steak suddenly gone. The world around me seemed to pause. My stomach twisted as I processed the words. Why? I asked, a sense of disbelief creeping into my voice. Rachel looked up from her phone, her lips curling into a faint smile. She needed it, Max. You know how it is. Mom's been struggling to get to those events in the city. She's so busy, she can't always deal with her old car. I set my fork down. My heart pounded in my chest. That's not what I meant. Why would you give her my car? Rachel's smile faded, but her eyes didn't show any hint of guilt. It's not a big deal, Max. She really needed it. You know she can't afford a new car, and you're doing fine with yours. Besides, it's just a car. Just a car. I tried to suppress the rising anger, but it bubbled over anyway. I had worked for years to get to a place where I could give her something like that, something she had asked for. It wasn't just a gift, it was an investment in us. In our future. And she had given it away as though it was nothing. Why didn't you ask me first? My voice came out sharper than I intended. Rachel shrugged, still not understanding the problem. She's family. You can't possibly say no to her. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the polished floor. I needed air. I needed to think. But I couldn't get out fast enough. My hands were shaking, my mind racing. How could she do this? What else was she willing to give up of mine? The answer came to me suddenly, like a slap in the face. I hadn't seen it before, but now it was all too clear. The car, the house, the time we spent together, it was never enough for her. Rachel had a different idea of family, one where I was merely a tool to get her what she wanted. As I walked to the door, the words left my lips before I even thought about them. You always get what you want, don't you, Rachel? Well, not anymore. Her face twisted into something unfamiliar, a mix of confusion and mock sympathy. Max, don't be dramatic. It's just a car. But as I left, a single thought ran through my mind, that car was just the beginning. And if Rachel was willing to do this, what else had she already taken from me? The phone call came at 2 a.m. I wasn't expecting it. No one should call at that hour unless they're either drunk or in trouble. It was Carlos, my father's longtime lawyer. The same man who had always been there for me, the man I thought of as a mentor in the family. Max, we need to talk. His voice was clipped, urgent. I've just been made aware of something you should know. I sat up, feeling my pulse quicken. The walls in the room seemed to close in on me. Everything I thought I knew about my family was suddenly under threat. The stakes were no longer just about a car, it was bigger than that. Carlos went on, his tone low, almost whispering as if he didn't want anyone else to hear. I don't think she's working alone. You need to be careful. There's more going on here than just the car. Your father, Rachel, they've been planning something behind your back. I gripped the phone tighter, the words slicing through me like a knife. What are you talking about? Meet me at the office. We'll talk. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. He hung up before I could say another word. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my keys, threw on my jacket, and stormed out of the house. My car, still a reminder of everything Rachel had taken from me, sat untouched in the driveway. I wanted to punch the windshield, smash it to pieces, but I didn't. I couldn't let my anger get the best of me. I had to keep my head clear. Driving through the quiet streets of Los Angeles, the night air pressing against my face as I sped down the empty roads, a thought kept gnawing at me. How far was Rachel willing to go? What had she and my father set up? It was becoming clear that everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. Carlos' office was on the edge of downtown, in one of those glass and steel towers that seemed to look down on the rest of the world. I parked my car in the underground lot and made my way up to the 24th floor. The place was eerily quiet, the lights too bright for the late hour. When I stepped into his office, I saw Carlos sitting behind his desk, looking older, more worn out than usual. There was something in his eyes, something I couldn't quite place. He motioned for me to sit. "Max," he began, his voice steady but edged with something darker. "You've been set up. It's not just a car. They've been plotting to cut you out of the company. And it's not just your wife. Your father. He's involved." I stared at him, disbelief flooding my veins. "What do you mean? My father?" Carlos didn't flinch. He slid a file across the desk, a thick stack of papers that seemed to weigh down everything in the room. "I've been doing some digging. You've been played, Max. The car was just the beginning. Your father, your wife, they've been shifting assets. They've been taking control, and you've been none the wiser." I ripped the file open, heart racing, scanning the pages quickly. Transactions, legal documents, accounts, none of it made sense. But the one thing that stood out was the sudden transfer of shares from me to a company that wasn't even on my radar. Rachel's mother's name was listed, and so was Carlos, as a silent partner. I felt a wave of nausea hit me. "They've been using me," I muttered under my breath. Carlos leaned forward. "I'm not telling you this for nothing, Max. You're in deep. And if you want to stay in control, you need to act now. They've already moved forward with their plan. If you don't step in, everything you've worked for is gone." My mind was a storm of rage and confusion. "So what's the next move? What do I do?" Carlos hesitated, his gaze darkening. "You have to confront your father. But I warn you, he's not the man you think he is. The deeper you dig, the more dangerous this becomes." I didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. There was no going back. The man I called father wasn't just a businessman. He was the architect of my downfall. "Where do I find him?" I asked, a fire building in my chest. Carlos stood, walking over to a cabinet, and pulled out a single envelope. "This is your answer. But be careful. If you make the wrong move, you'll lose more than just your company. You'll lose everything." He handed me the envelope, and I could feel the weight of it. More than just paper, it was the final piece of a puzzle that was too dangerous to solve. I walked out of his office, the silence of the night pressing in on me. The city felt different now, darker, more hostile. I was being watched. As I stepped back into my car, the message on my phone buzzed. It was from Rachel. "We need to talk. Now." I didn't respond. Not yet. There was no time for that. The clock was ticking, and I needed answers. Fast. I sped toward home, but before I could reach my driveway, I saw a figure standing by the front door. A shadow in the darkness, watching. Was it her? The question burned in my mind as I parked and stepped out. As I approached, the figure turned, revealing a familiar face. It was Carlos. He wasn't supposed to be here. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice laced with something darker than fear. I froze. Something was wrong. Too wrong. Before I could say anything, the lights inside my house flickered. The door creaked open. And then I heard the sound I dreaded most, footsteps. The door was open. But someone else was already inside. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat louder than the last. The door closed behind me with a soft click, but the silence in the room was anything but comforting. Carlos was standing there, looking like he had seen a ghost. His eyes were wide, but he wasn't just scared, he was desperate. I didn't have time for small talk. "What the hell is going on, Carlos?" I demanded, my voice shaking with frustration and anger. "Why the hell is my father involved in this? And why the hell didn't you tell me sooner? Carlos took a long, shaky breath. He was never this rattled, and it only made my stomach twist tighter. Max, he started, his voice low and steady, you don't know the full story. You can't see it yet. Your father, your wife. They've been planning this for months. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear more or if I could handle it. But I wasn't walking away until I got answers. Planning what, exactly? I pressed, stepping closer. Carlos looked around nervously, as if someone could be listening. The company, Max. They're planning to take it all. The assets, the shares, everything you've worked for. They were never planning on you inheriting it. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. The company, Collins Enterprises, the empire my father built and handed down to me, was slipping away. I could feel it, that familiar sinking sensation in my stomach, but this time it was worse. It was personal. You're telling me my own father has been scheming to take everything from me? I asked, disbelief and fury bubbling up in equal measure. Carlos didn't say anything for a long moment, just stared at me. He didn't have to. His silence confirmed it all. I clenched my fists. What did Rachel know about this? I almost choked on her name. She'd known. She had to have known. Carlos didn't respond immediately, as if weighing his words carefully. She's been the one pushing it, Max, he said quietly. She's been in on it from the start. Your father's willing to sacrifice you for control. But Rachel, she wants more. This isn't just about power or money. She's after everything you have. I took a step back, my head spinning. Rachel, my wife. My partner. The woman I thought I could trust above all others. And now this. She'd been planning behind my back, with my father of all people. It felt like I was suffocating in my own skin. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice rough, the weight of betrayal heavy on my chest. Carlos hesitated, his face tight with regret. Because I can't sit back anymore. I can't let them destroy you, Max. You have to fight. You have to stop them before it's too late. I wanted to scream at him, but I held back. What was the point? The truth was already laid bare, ugly, and exposed. How do I stop them, Carlos? My voice was low, controlled, but inside, I felt a storm of rage building. How do I take back what's mine? Carlos's eyes narrowed. There's a meeting. A final decision about your shares, your future in the company. Your father and Rachel are going to push it through tomorrow. You need to stop it, get there before they can seal the deal. You'll need proof. Documents, evidence. Without it, they'll just have their way. And you'll lose everything. My mind raced. This was my chance. My only chance. But something in the back of my mind nodded me. Something felt off about all of this. Carlos had always been loyal, or so I thought, but now I wondered. Was he really helping me? Or was he just a piece in their game too? You said you were going to help me, Carlos. Don't think for a second that I'm trusting you blindly. I said it coldly, my words cutting through the air. He nodded, but the look in his eyes told me I wasn't the only one who was questioning loyalties. Go to the meeting, he urged, stepping forward. I'll give you everything you need. But you have to be quick. And you have to be careful. I turned to leave, my body tense, ready for what came next. I couldn't afford to fail. The pieces were falling into place, but they were fragile. I needed to be sharp, to make sure I didn't miss a single thing. I reached for the door, but something caught my eye, the file Carlos had left open on the desk. There, at the top of one of the pages, was a name I didn't recognize. A name I should have known. I grabbed the file and scanned the page, my blood running cold. The name wasn't just unfamiliar, it was dangerous. Mason Cartwright. The CEO of one of my father's most aggressive competitors. My mind reeled. Why was he involved? I turned back to Carlos. What the hell is this? I asked, my voice tight with disbelief. Carlos looked away, and that was all I needed to see. It wasn't just my wife and father. There was another player in this game, and his hands were all over it. My breath caught in my throat. What have you gotten me into, Carlos? I whispered to myself. The door behind me opened with a sharp creak. My head snapped toward the sound, but before I could react, a figure appeared in the doorway. It was Rachel. Her eyes were cold, calculating, as if she had been waiting for me this entire time. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her with a soft click. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. And just like that, I realized the truth. I was trapped. The hallway seemed longer than usual. The sharp scent of polished wood and expensive cologne in the air did nothing to calm the storm inside me. Every step I took echoed through the empty space, amplifying the noise in my head. Carlos was right. This had gone too far. I reached the large wooden door to my father's office. The faint light escaping from the crack beneath it made my pulse quicken. I wasn't prepared for what I was about to do, but it didn't matter anymore. I had to face him. I knocked once, my hand trembling slightly. The door swung open, and there he was, James Collins, sitting at his grand mahogany desk like he had for years. He barely looked up as I stepped inside, his focus entirely on the file in front of him. The empire he built. My inheritance. My future. You're late, he said, his voice low but commanding, as always. His eyes never left the papers before him, a cold, calculating look on his face. Didn't think you'd come. Thought you'd run off like the last time. I stood frozen for a moment, gathering myself. I wasn't going to back down this time. I'm done with running, I said, my voice steady but cold. I know what you've been doing. I know about the shares, about the transfer, about Rachel. The sharp click of his pen echoed in the room as he set it down. Finally, he met my gaze, his face a mask of indifference. You have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't flinch. I know about the meeting. I know about Mason Cartwright. I know about the deal you're making with Rachel. A flicker of something, anger, perhaps, crossed his face before he masked it. But I could see the truth behind his eyes. He wasn't denying it. I didn't want this for you, Max. You were never cut out for this. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of his face. Rachel and I, we're trying to do what's best for the family. For the company. My stomach churned. I had spent my entire life trying to prove myself to this man. But it was never enough. Best for the family? Or best for you? How many times, Dad, how many times have I had to watch you sacrifice me for the sake of your company? He sighed, an almost imperceptible flicker of regret in his eyes. You're too emotional, Max. You don't see the bigger picture. This company is bigger than all of us. It has to survive. And you. You've never had the patience to build it like I did. I clenched my fists. You want the company to survive? Then stop treating it like a toy. Stop treating me like a pawn in your game. I'm not your damn employee. I'm your son. He stood up then, towering over me, the full weight of his presence settling between us like an unspoken truth. And you've never been good enough to take it over. It was always meant to be Rachel, not you. She has the drive, the vision. She's the one who will make the business grow, who will keep it in the family. I stared at him, the blood rushing to my head. Rachel. She wasn't just involved in this. She had been orchestrating it, helping him. The woman I had trusted, the woman who had slept beside me, had been plotting against me the whole time. And now, everything I had built was slipping through my fingers, all because of her, because of them. You're wrong, I spat. You've been using me from the start, manipulating everything. You've made sure I never had a chance. James's eyes narrowed, his voice colder now, more controlled. Maybe you just weren't good enough to see the game. But Rachel and I, we know how to play it. And you're just a casualty. A burst of anger surged through me, and I took a step toward him, slamming my fist on his desk. You know what? You've made your choice. But you've underestimated me, Father. I'm not going to let you destroy everything I've worked for. I'll take back what's mine, no matter what it takes. He stood there, calm, unflinching. His expression unreadable. You don't understand, Max. You never did. This isn't just about you. It's about survival. And if you're in the way, then I'll remove you from it. I felt the weight of his words settle in, but I refused to let them break me. I'll see you in court, I said, my voice steady, cold. You can't hide behind your deals forever. There's always a way to expose the truth. As I turned to leave, I heard his voice again, quieter this time. You can't win, Max. You're already too far gone. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I knew what I had to do. But just as I reached for the door, I heard a faint sound, the creak of a floorboard behind me. Someone was watching. I spun around quickly, my heart racing. But there was no one there. Except for Rachel. She was standing in the doorway, her eyes colder than I'd ever seen them. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her with a slow, deliberate motion. Her gaze flickered toward my father, then back to me, a thin, almost imperceptible smile on her lips. You should have known, Max, she said, her voice low. The company was never yours. It was always mine. I froze, disbelief sinking into my bones. She was in on it all along. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a calculated war, one she had been planning with my father, step by step. And just like that, I realized there was no going back. Get out of my way, Rachel, I said, my voice thick with venom. She didn't budge. No. You're already too late. Everything has already been decided. And that's when the final blow hit me. I wasn't just losing my family. I was losing everything I had built. I was powerless. I didn't even know how to feel anymore. Betrayal? Anger? Regret? It all swirled together, leaving me numb. I stood there in my father's office, staring at Rachel, the woman I thought I could trust, now standing in front of me like a stranger. The woman who had been part of this scheme, part of this trap that had been set for me from the start. Her eyes were cold, calculating, and in that moment, I realized I had underestimated her. I never thought she was capable of something like this. She wasn't just a pawn, she was the queen. Max, don't make this harder than it already is, she said, her voice flat, with a hint of something that almost sounded like pity. You've always been so blind to how the world works. To how your father works. I felt the room closing in. The walls, once comforting and familiar, now felt like a prison. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about my family, was slipping through my fingers. And the worst part? It wasn't just my father's betrayal anymore. It was hers too. I looked at her, not knowing where to start. Why? I whispered, barely able to speak the word, my throat tight. Why would you do this? To me? To us? She crossed her arms, leaning against the wall. You never understood the bigger picture, Max. This isn't about love. This is about survival. The company is my birthright. Your father and I, we're doing what we have to. You were never meant to run it. I was. I took a step forward, the air between us crackling with tension. So that's it? You've been playing me this whole time? You're just going to throw away everything we've built for some delusional power grab? Her expression softened for a moment, but only briefly. You never saw it, did you? You've always been a pawn in my father's game. He never wanted you to take over, Max. He thought you were weak. And you've proven him right. I wanted to scream. To throw something. But I couldn't. All I could do was stand there and watch the woman I loved walk away from everything we had, everything I had tried to protect. "I've always known you were weak, Max," she said, turning to face me fully. "I gave you everything, and you couldn't even keep your own company. That's why you're here now, asking for scraps." The sting of her words hit me hard. But I wasn't going to back down. I couldn't. "I'll make sure you regret this, Rachel," I said, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it before. "You've pushed me too far." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you can take it back? You think you can win against me? Against my father? You're nothing but a shadow of what you could have been, Max. It's over. You lost." Her words were final. There was no softness left, no warmth, just cold indifference. I turned and walked out of the room, the weight of everything pressing down on me. But as I reached the door, I stopped. Something didn't feel right. I could feel eyes on me, but the office was empty. Or was it? I stepped into the hallway, my pulse racing, and I could feel the air shift. There was a faint sound behind me, the shuffle of footsteps. I turned around, but no one was there. I swallowed hard and kept walking. The walls felt like they were closing in faster now. Every door I passed, every flicker of light in the hallway, it all felt like a trap. The company. Rachel. My father. It was all connected. And I was stuck in the middle of it. I reached the elevator, pressing the button impatiently. The door slid open, but as I stepped inside, the floor beneath me felt unstable. A memory flashed in my mind, a conversation I had overheard years ago between my father and Carlos. They had mentioned something about taking Max out of the equation, but I had dismissed it as a metaphor for business. Now, I wondered if I had been wrong. The elevator jerked to a stop, and the lights flickered. Not good. I reached for the emergency button, but before I could press it, the lights went out completely. The air turned thick, suffocating, and I could feel my heart racing. I wasn't alone. A voice, low and smooth, echoed in the dark. "You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?" I froze. The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Carlos?" I said, my voice trembling slightly. A chuckle filled the silence. Close. But not quite. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The darkness felt oppressive now, and I knew I wasn't imagining the danger. Something was coming, and it wasn't just the collapse of my family. It was something bigger, something I hadn't anticipated. The elevator door suddenly opened, and the light returned, but it wasn't the safety I had hoped for. Carlos was standing there, a grim expression on his face, his hands empty, but his stance rigid. Behind him, in the shadows, someone else stepped forward. I felt my stomach drop. It was Mason Cartwright. "Funny," Mason said, his voice laced with amusement, "you think you can play the game, Max. But you're not the one who gets to make the rules." Carlos didn't speak. He just stood there, eyes fixed on me. I swallowed, my mouth dry. "What's going on? What is this? Who are you really working for?" Mason's smile was thin, dangerous. "We're all just players in a bigger game, Max. And you're out of moves." As the door closed behind me, I realized it was too late. I had been set up, not just by Rachel, not just by my father, but by everyone. The game was over. I wasn't prepared for this. I had spent years battling against every expectation, every obstacle my father and Rachel put in my path, and yet somehow, here I was, standing at the precipice of it all, my world crumbling around me. But there was no time to reflect. No time for regrets. The game was over, and I had to play my final hand. Rachel had walked out of my father's office with a smile that was colder than the air around me, leaving me alone with my thoughts. My heart was racing, and for the first time in a long time, I was afraid, not just of losing everything I had worked for, but of losing myself in the process. What have I become? I whispered to myself. What have they made me into? The sound of the elevator door opening jerked me from my thoughts. A figure stepped out of Carlos. His expression was tense, guarded. I could see the weight of the world in his eyes, but the worst part was the way he avoided my gaze. I wasn't sure if I could trust him anymore. "You're here," I said, the edge of desperation creeping into my voice. "I don't even know who to trust anymore, Carlos." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he glanced down the hallway, his eyes darting, like he was checking for someone. "Max," he finally spoke, his voice low. "There's something you need to understand. You've been outplayed. Your father, Rachel, they've planned this from the start. You were never meant to win." I shook my head, my mind still reeling. "I know that. But there's got to be something I can do. There has to be a way to turn this around." Carlos hesitated, then stepped closer. "There is no going back now. The transfer has already been signed. Everything is in motion. And it's not just about the company anymore, it's about something bigger." I felt the ground slip beneath me. Something bigger? My mind was racing. What could be bigger than the company? What could possibly be more important than everything I had lost? "What do you mean?" I demanded, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Carlos looked me dead in the eyes, his face a mask of regret. "There's a third party involved. Mason Cartwright. He's been backing them all along. It's not just your father and Rachel. They've been using you as a pawn to take control of everything, and now they've got what they wanted." The world seemed to stop. My breath caught in my throat. Mason Cartwright, the man I had trusted, the one I had thought was just a business rival, was now standing at the center of everything. The pieces fell into place, but the truth didn't make it any easier to swallow. "You're telling me Cartwright's been pulling the strings?" I whispered, almost to myself. "All this time?" Carlos nodded, his jaw tight. "He's been maneuvering everything, Max. The shares, the company, even the property deals, he's been buying up everything on the side. He's got full control now. And if you don't act fast, he'll have you locked out for good." A wave of dread washed over me. "So, it's really over?" My voice cracked. "Everything I've worked for, everything my father built. All gone?" Carlos didn't say anything. He didn't need to. His silence was the confirmation I didn't want to hear. "I don't know what to do anymore," I whispered, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. "I've lost everything, Carlos. I don't even know who I am anymore. I thought I could beat them. I thought I could win. But I'm too far gone." Carlos stepped back, his face hardening. "You're not done yet, Max. There's one last chance. One final move you can make." I looked up at him, desperate for anything, any shred of hope. "What do I have left to fight for?" Carlos's voice dropped to a whisper. "You fight for yourself. You fight for what you've always wanted, control. You fight because you're still your father's son. You're still a Collins. And you're damn well not going to let them take that from you." I felt something stir inside me. A spark of defiance I had forgotten existed. The game wasn't over. Not yet. I turned to leave, but Carlos's voice stopped me. "Max," he said, his tone warning. "You're not just fighting them anymore. You're fighting for your soul. Don't forget that." His words hung in the air as I walked away, each step heavier than the last. The weight of betrayal was still there, but now a fire burned in my chest. I had nothing left to lose, but maybe, just maybe, that was enough. I didn't know what was coming next. I didn't know what would happen when I confronted my father again, or when I stood face to face with Rachel and Cartwright. But I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going down without a fight. I wasn't going to let them tear me apart. As I stepped out of the building, the cold night air hit my face, sharp and unyielding. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive. The game was on. And I was going to win.